Hello, this is the Ancient Texan. I'm going to talk about a subject that we try to avoid in America. Capitalism in our country is very good at creating wealth, probably the best machine that has ever been created. It creates wealth, and politicians distribute that wealth. Politicians are in general controlled by the rich elite. So, nothing I'm saying here today will probably go anywhere. Um, the rich elite that control the Republicans will say we can't afford to help the poor and the middle class. The Democrats, afraid to stand for anything, who base their policy on things that are important like racism and rights for every group in America and every individual, uh, are afraid to attack a program, attack a problem as big as wealth inequality. But I'm going to throw it out there and I'm going to make a suggestion. And I've always learned that if, you know, one person is willing to put something on the table, other people are willing to tell you what's wrong with it, which I suspect anybody that listens to this proposal will be glad to do and tell me what's wrong with it. But I'm putting this on the table as a serious effort to change the way it is. Wealth inequality is not something that makes America great. It's something that makes America weak. We tend to argue about this on the abstract, and we forget that this is about real people, real children growing up in America, and the opportunities they have. And the opportunities are much less than when I grew up. I got my first job in 1968 working at a smelter. The minimum wage then was less than $2, and you might be surprised to find out what $2 an hour is now. Just take a guess at it. Anyway, I'm going to give you a proposal for how to help the poor and pull them up and how to tax the rich. It's a two-pronged proposal to start everybody off thinking and hoping that the Democrats will get brave enough to at least stick their neck out and try to do something. I'm not very optimistic, but maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. So I hope you enjoy this. I put it together and then used Notebook LM to help me articulate it. I wrote up the program and then Notebook LM articulated it. Whoa, that's probably incorrect use of that word. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan presenting my ideas on wealth inequality. If nothing else, please just tell me how screwed up I am.
Initiative. And it's basically a big, bold plan designed to go after one of the biggest issues out there, wealth inequality in America.
So let's just kick things off with a huge question, right? If it were up to you, if you had to design a plan from scratch to not just move wealth around, but to actually help more people build real, lasting prosperity, where would you even begin? I mean, it's a massive challenge. Our source lays out one very specific answer to that question, so let's unpack it.
Okay, so the name of this thing is the Prosperity and Equity Initiative. And at its heart, it's a dual-pronged approach. The whole idea is to attack the problem from two different angles at the same time. Think of it like two sides of the same coin, working together. And here you go. This slide lays out those two sides perfectly. On the one hand, the whole framework is designed to stand on these two pillars. So let's start by digging into those support programs.
All right, let's jump right into that first pillar, shall we? This first part is all about the program specifically designed to give a direct boost to people's income and their job skills.
First up is something I'm sure you've heard a lot about, a $15 an hour federal minimum wage. But here's the really interesting part from the source material. That number wasn't just pulled out of a hat. It's specifically calculated to match the actual buying power that the minimum wage had way back in 1968, once you adjust for today's inflation.
The government would actually send you a check every month to top up what you're making, to make sure you hit a certain level of income. So what's the magic number they're aiming for here? Well, the goal of this proposed negative income tax is to raise every qualifying worker's effective hourly wage all the way up to $25. That's a pretty significant jump from that $15 minimum wage we just talked about.
Okay, so who actually gets this? Not everyone, of course. The proposal lays out two main rules you'd have to meet. First, you've got to be working at least 1,500 hours a year, which is, about 30 hours a week. And second, your total yearly income has to come in under $40,000. So we've got income covered, but what about skills? The plan tackles that too, with a national vocational training program. It's pretty straightforward, broken down into 3 steps. First, you sign up for training in a skilled trade. Think plumbing, welding, that kind of thing. Second, the government pays for your tuition up front. And third, you pay that money back really slowly over time, through small deductions from your future paychecks, which will hopefully be a lot bigger. Okay, so we've got direct income and job skills on the table. But that's just one piece of the puzzle for that first big pillar, right? Part B of this plan zooms in on 2 other huge financial hurdles: building up some long-term wealth and dealing with the crazy cost of healthcare. You always hear that owning a home is a cornerstone of building wealth. Well, this plan tries to make that a reality for more people. The chart here shows how the federal homeownership assistance part would work. If you're a first-time home buyer, you'd put down 5%, and then the federal government would match that with another 5%. So boom, just like that, you got a 10% down payment. And then there's healthcare. I mean, we all know how medical bills can just absolutely wreck a family's finances. So this proposal tries to put a safety net in place. The core idea is simple. If all your medical expenses for the year, that's your premiums, your copays, the whole shebang, add up to more than 10% of your income, you'd get a federal tax credit to help cover that blow. And hey, if you don't use it all in one year, you can even carry it forward. So you take all these different support programs, you put them together. What's the grand vision? Well, this quote from the source document really just nails it. The whole objective is to tackle wealth inequality by giving people actual, concrete tools to boost their earning power and to build real assets, like a home.
Okay, that was part 1 of the plan. It's for the bottom half of society, and it's pretty straightforward. 1, vocational training for all those people that don't go to college but still would like to earn an income that would give them basic stuff like a house and a car and being able to have children. So the first pillar is the training program. Then a minimum wage, $15 an hour. And then a negative income tax that takes that up to $25. The $15 per hour does not distort the local economy. It comes out of the federal budget. We're going to say how we pay for that in a minute. And it lifts somebody up to $25 an hour, so you can do the math. That's $50,000 a year type thing. Help with buying a house, half of the down payment, and a safety net that prevents health expenses from completely destroying everything you have. I've experienced that myself. So the health program would just be the government would cover costs that amount to more than 10% of your salary that you're responsible for yourself or your dependents. It's not complicated. Those health care costs are paid to you on the years after you um, incur the cost in monthly checks until the difference between 10% of your salary and the cost of the medical expenses are paid for. So, with a guaranteed income level, catastrophic help or help with catastrophic medical expenses and a help on getting a house, it starts with building prosperity and assets for the people that are in the lower half. It doesn't do it overnight, but it moves the poor up the ladder. Now I'm going to talk about how I would pay for this program.
Definition we have to get our heads around here. For the purposes of this plan, the word earning means way more than just your salary. It's defined as the total sum of your salary plus any capital gains from investments plus any interest you get paid, all rolled into one number for the year. Okay, so with that super broad definition of earning in mind, let's look at the actual tax plan. This table breaks it down pretty clearly. It's a progressive, three-tiered system. For annual earnings over $1 million, the proposed minimum tax rate is 30%. That jumps up to 40% for earnings over $10 million, and it tops out at a 50% minimum tax rate for anyone pulling in over $100 million in a single year. All right, so we've looked at the two big pieces, right? On one side, you have all the support programs. On the other, you have this brand new tax structure. So for this last part, let's finally connect the dots and see how this whole system is actually supposed to work together. When you boil it all down, the core logic of this whole prosperity and equity initiative is actually super straightforward. It's a direct redistribution model. The revenue that's generated from those new minimum taxes on high earners is explicitly designed to pay for the whole range of support programs we just walked through: the wage top-up, the job training, the down payment help. It's as simple as that. Pillar 2 is meant to fund Pillar 1. And that's pretty much the whole proposal in a nutshell. We've walked through a detailed blueprint for boosting wages, skills, and assets, and it's all supposed to be funded by a new tax structure on the highest earners. So, I guess I'll leave you with this final, big question to chew on. If a system like this were ever actually put into practice, what kind of impacts on society, both the ones they intended and the ones they never saw coming, could we really expect to see?
Well, that's the program in a nutshell for how I would do wealth inequality. If I was going to add anything, I would add in help with child care expenses. And I would probably push that help up, I don't know, up to where people make $60,000 a year. And I would, cover half of the child care expenses, something to that effect, and make it effective for everybody that's got kids. Now, here, I don't expect either side to do anything, but here's a challenge to Elon. Elon, you're always talking about fertility and how the biggest problem in the world is we're not having kids. Well, I don't suspect you've ever been poor. I have been. Started out that way. And I know how hard it is to pull yourself up. Most people can't do it. And we're in a society now that's much more difficult than when I did it. And I have not had fabulous success. I've had my income wiped out by medical expenses of my late wife. But I do have some valuable skills, and I've earned quite a bit in my life. But you're always talking about fertility. if you want to do something about fertility, Elon, you think it's such a big problem, why don't you endorse this wealth inequality program, or whatever you want to call it, initiative? I don't think you'll do so because you would have to pay, you'd be one of those people that might have to pay 50% income tax. And that would cut out, it'd make it tougher for you to become a trillionaire. So I don't really expect you to put your money where your mouth is about fertility, but this is just a challenge out there. And Democrats like Jasmine, up and comers, and AOC, when you run for president this next time, AOC, maybe you run, have enough balls to put this program on the table. And if you lose, you lose. If America doesn't want it, you should lose. But I think you'd be surprised at how many Americans might get on board with this. I think people may be tired of struggling, and by then our debt is going to start taking a real cut out of our pockets through inflation. Printing all that money to deal with our debt's going to start hurting. So, Democrats, let's have some balls. Elon, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? And Republicans, I think you work more for the rich than the Democrats do. I don't expect you to help the average American at all. But if there's one or two of you out there that might actually see that America needs help, I would welcome you aboard. I'm not ideological. Getting old and senile here. What's important to me are programs like this. I'm an independent. I lean more left than right, but I'm willing to go to the right on a lot of issues too. That you'll see if you keep following this Substack or my YouTube channel. Each issue that I talk about, I think, is important for America. And I would love for a lot of people to jump on board and tell me everything that I've got screwed up. Help me make what I'm doing better. Give me better ideas than I've got. I tend to believe in people, and I want to invest in people, especially the young. That's kind of the core of who I am. And you can tell me the core of who you are, what makes you a good person, what you believe in, and how what you believe in leads to the programs that you want to see our politicians embrace. This is the Ancient Texan. Namaste.